So here's a new lunge we want all backcountry and mountain athletes to be doing. The cool thing about this is kind of what we've been playing with and what's been working awesome for tons of mountain hunters that test out of the lab is what was going on is traditional mountain athlete training for a mountain hunter or backcountry athlete was coaching, a ton of step ups, which are great, where the athlete is stepping up onto the box and going straight up. They're great for a hunter, they're great for a mountain athlete, but what we realize is traditionally what is happening as you're hunting is you're working up a steep angle or you're working down a steep angle. It's very rare where you're gonna spend 20, 30 minutes or an hour going straight up like a Versa climber or step up is training you to do. They're beneficial, but the reality is most of the time when you're hunting, you're dealing with a uphill gradient or a downhill gradient. Now there's some really cool ways to train the downhill gradient. We're not gonna talk about that today, but it's this gradient that's most common. So as a hunter, you might spend 4 to 6 hours on a gradient like this, especially on some of these sheep hunts where you're starting low and you're winding up at 10,000 feet. It might take you 4 hours to get up this trail system and you're just working this gradient, this uphill gradient the whole time. So this year, this is one thing that we really wanted to focus on training. And so Jimmy came up with the Deficit Lunge that's been helping us a ton with this. That's what we want to talk about today, is how you guys can do this at home or do it in your home gym. The really cool thing is this Deficit Lunge is part of a bunch of new programs we're working on now that are coming out in a couple months. But we want to show you how to do this today.
Yeah. So what we're going to start off with is we want to learn what height of deficit we're going to choose for every athlete. Some athletes can go pretty high, some need to go a little lower depending on their hip mobility. So it's all about your hip mobility. So we'll get your foot on there first. And now I'm going to have you go back into a reverse lunge and get your knee to the floor. So what we've been doing is we've been playing around with this a lot and find out that, some guys can do a deficit lunge off of, maybe a 10-inch box or 8-inch box or a 6-inch box. What we don't want you to feel is an impingement in your hip. And if his foot was up here a lot higher, he's going to create an impingement, which would not be good. So we want to be able to comfortably get in here, but we want to be in this deep lunge so he's below parallel. See how much higher his knee is in his hip? That's going to get great glute activation and quad activation. But again, I just want you guys to be careful with it, that you're not creating an impingement. And what that would feel like is if we stuck that up a little higher, just for an example, if we stuck, let's say, these two on here, you're going to see Dustin's probably going to struggle getting that back knee to the floor, and his hip's going to do some weird things. It's going to create a posterior tilt in your hip back here, which is going to round your butt under. You can kind of see here from the side. We don't want that. You want to be able to keep your back straight. And if it's too high, you can't get your knee forward, and it's going to roll your butt under, create a posterior tilt. So we want to stay away from that. Then also, let's take these off. We'll get a front view now. So go and put your foot back on there. Now, depending on your hip width, if you got kind of narrower hips, you can get away with your knee being directly in front of your hip. But if you feel an impingement here, you can also try bring this foot out a little bit and bring this hinge here out of your hip. That can open up your hip and get rid of the impingement as well. So we want this deficit, but you need to play around and see which deficit is right for you. And we typically see that, about a 6-inch to 8-inch deficit is pretty much good for everybody. So when you start with these, we're gonna do what's a front rack with 2 dumbbells, but we also want our knee by our toe here, okay? And then we're gonna scoot that knee in further to the plate. We'll bring it a little closer to the plate. So I don't wanna overextend this hip. If this knee right here was way back here, he's gonna overstretch his hip flexor, okay? So we want the knee kind of directly below this hip, right there, which is gonna push this knee over your toe, and then you're gonna come up just like a traditional reverse lunge and step up to the plate and back down. So bring this in a little bit more. And you're gonna wanna push this knee back as you're staying away from working your quad. So if you drive this foot back too far, this knee is not gonna be over your toe. It's gonna end up back here, not utilizing your quad. So we want the knee forward, so we can use our quad and our glute together. And come up. There we go, that's a little better. You can probably get your knee a little bit further back, but after you do them for a while, they'll become like second nature to you and they'll feel really good. And when you hinge forward like he's doing perfectly, what we don't want to see is when you hinge is rounding. That's not a hinge. Keeping your back flat and getting your chest over quad is a hinge, about right there. You don't want to round to get over your knee, so keep these erectors here nice and strong, chest up, and that's going to be perfect right there. I'm going to grab you some weight. We've been doing these for probably about 6 weeks now, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from our hunters this season. So
Yeah, because you have to drive forward.
you have to drive forward.
Yeah, instead
exactly.
of up.
Yeah, it's going to help you with getting over trees.
Yep.
It's actually going to work on gaining a little flexibility
Yep.
out of that bottom knee. So it's going to help in many ways. So now remember, you're going to push the knee forward. Good. 1, 2, 3. And we've been kind of using them as a bit of an accessory to maybe some heavier reverse lunges, mixing them in with step ups.
You could do them with a pack on.
We've done with the pack on a lot. We've probably done with the pack on maybe even more than dumbbells. But we like them with a pack, with dumbbells. If you have shoulder issues, you can hang them down here. You can keep your dumbbells to your side. But so far, our favorite's been a front rack. So far,
Get that
that
core
or a
tight.
pack on. Yeah.
And like 10 on the right leg, 10 on the left leg.
10 on the right. We've done a supersets where we've gone 10 reps on each leg. And then the next set we come through, we'll do, like 14, where there was 6 or 8 with each leg and going heavier and heavier and heavier and work our way down.
And so I guess guys just have to watch out for that impingement if they feel
Watch out
that.
for the impingement. It's easy. I mean, if you feel like you're getting tightness in your hip right here, try push your knee out maybe a little bit, or just go a little lower. By shortening it just by 1 inch, you'd be amazed how much better that feels.
Clear that impingement.
Already, right. Keep your chest up, knee over toe, and come up that way. I can use my glute and my quad at the same time.
And is the most common mistake you're seeing is that back leg's driving out too far?
Yeah, the most common mistake is what we see is when someone comes back, they're gonna drive this knee back instead of forward and end up like this. And then they're just using this back leg to drive themselves up.
Yep.
And they'll think that they're doing a lot of weight when they're not
firing
actually
this
getting any
quad.
stronger from the exercise.
Yeah. This would be a great thing to do at the house with just a block to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, a block, a stair.
Yeah.
You can use about anything.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
You bet.